Hey guys, hope everybody's doing well. Crazy times in the world right now, so I hope everybody is staying safe and hopefully staying inside and practicing. So with that in mind, I'm going to follow up to my last video on diminished phrases, where I mentioned that if you guys have some wishes for content that I'll be getting out in these coming months, since I will be not touring as much given the pandemic. So if you guys have questions I mentioned in the last video, feel free to start asking these coming up because I will have a little bit more time to create content, and so I would love to help you guys on your journey with practicing and improving as improvisers. So with that in mind, we're going to address one of the questions from that last YouTube video, and this is something that people have asked a lot in general. Essentially, one person asked, how do you practice? And so that is a great question. It's a question that I know everyone, including myself, has wondered at some point in their development. And so essentially, here's my system, and it comes down to three main things that you really want to focus on. So one is going to be having a plan. So having a plan to me is very important. And again, all of this is just my system, my preferences. In my opinion, I do not think that having a plan is the same thing as having a routine. And I actually think that routines can be a little detrimental. So what I mean by that is sometimes people become locked into a practice routine where they're playing the same thing over and over again. They're trying to perfect those few scale exercises they're working on and that one concept and trying to get better at it. And in the meantime, your mind's going to be kind of less engaged and you're going to be just sort of drilling the same stuff. You're not getting as much out of it. And the reality is you will never perfect a concept. So it's actually, I think, a lot more important to be cycling through loads of materials and of course spending enough time in each session on something to get a little bit of something out of it. You don't want to just rush through a bunch of different concepts. But I think it's great to always be cycling through a lot of different materials to keep your mind engaged. A lot of people become locked into thinking that the process to master improvising is kind of a step-by-step, one thing at a time process, when really I think of it a lot more as kind of a revolving door going through all these different topics and getting better at each of them and always coming back to things to kind of get as much improvement out of it as you can and to get as good at it as possible. So again, to me, the important thing is to have a plan. So what a plan means is charting out, I would say, over a few weeks, what do you want to get better at and how much time, generally speaking, you're going to spend on each thing. And in every plan, I feel that when you're planning out your month of practicing, you want to have a diverse amount of material that's going to end up improving a diverse amount of skills. You don't want to just be doing ear training or just be doing transcriptions for the month or just be doing scale exercises. No, you want to have a revolving door that kind of hits a broad array of topics so you can kind of be improving on everything, on every skill set very equally. And so all of your musicianship will kind of improve at a steady pace and you won't be leaving any skills behind. So worth mentioning, a lot of times on my social media, when I do check it, I will see tons of questions about whether I teach privately. And so for those of you who have inquired, you all know I have not taught privately for several years outside of San Francisco Conservatory, where I'm a visiting artist and I have a small studio of saxophonists there. But I have not taught privately outside of San Francisco Conservatory for several years. However, given that I'm not touring as much due to this pandemic happening right now, we actually are going to be doing, probably just for a limited time, because I don't know how long I'll be able to keep it up, but we're going to be doing a monthly subscription through jazzlessonvideos.com, where I'm actually going to be doing text lessons. So the monthly subscription, it's a way of keeping things way more affordable than what it would be to study with me privately. So I'll get to work with a bunch of you just through texting. And so what I'm going to be doing is everything that we would do in an in-person lesson, where interactively I'm listening to your playing. This will be through videos. I'll listen through your playing. I'll check in on your progress. I'll be giving you monthly assignments and a practice plan, according to how much time you have in the months to be practicing and according to what your strengths and weaknesses are and what you want to get better and, according to my critique of what process I think is going to be best for you to improve. So it's going to be a really cool program, and you can check out way more details about it over at jazzlessonvideos.com, and I believe it's /text-lessons. So we'll put a link in this video description so you can check that out. But anyway, moving forward, so the second thing that I think is always important to keep in mind, we just kind of touched on it towards the end of step one there. The second thing that you really want to keep in mind at all times is analyzing your own playing. So you want to analyze your playing in a very real, cut and dry, straight ahead type of way. You want to look at it very honestly, and you want to say, okay, what can I get better at? What does Sonny Rollins have in his playing that I don't have? Is he, more clear with the way he outlines the chord changes? Is he more rhythmically inventive? Is his phrasing better? Obviously there are going to be a lot of things when you're comparing yourself to the legends. But what you can do is just chip away at these different abilities that you see the legends have, and just kind of chip away at it day at a time. That's all it is. There's a great saying that a 1,000-mile journey begins with a single step. So I like to keep that in mind when I'm practicing. A lot of times just that first step is the hardest. You just got to get started. You got to pick up that book. You've got to look at that transcription, and you've just got to say, okay, let me get a couple measures down. So you got to look at your strengths and weaknesses and honestly know what you have to improve at. Are my ears not as good as they should be? Is my technique not as good as they should be? Sometimes, you're just going to feel like everything needs to get better. And you should always feel like everything needs to get better. No matter at what level you're at, you can always improve at each type of ability. However, sometimes there's that one thing that you got to get better at, but you've really been neglecting it in your practice. And a lot of times that is the most important thing to practice. And just throwing my 2 cents out there, a lot of times I find with horn players, one of the most important things that they've got to do is get a better handle on chord changes and how to memorize chord changes. So that's one thing that I'll be definitely working on a lot with the students in this text lesson plan. Okay, so moving on to number 3, the third thing that you want to make sure you're focusing on when you're practicing is taking things slow. You want to practice everything slow. Now that's something that a lot of people hear since they're little kids, study just picking up their instrument for the first time, and their first teacher says, you gotta take things slow, and it's something that you always hear, and you always hear, oh, the legends, the masters, they take it slow, and it makes sense because, yeah, you wanna make sure that you perfect things, but there's one thing that people actually don't realize, and that's that the masters, the legends, the improvisers who you so admire, they are taking things slow because they're always practicing things that they suck at. And so what I mean by that is that you always have things that you're not good at, that you can get better at in music. No matter who you are, there are always certain things that you would not be able to do if you really challenged yourself to approach it. So for me, that might be things like taking giant steps in all 12 keys, stuff like that. That's what I work on. For more developing players and, for the younger me, it might have been something like making sure I really honestly learned the chord changes to There Will Never Be Another You and understood how it functioned harmonically, and then maybe took it into a different key and went about that process. So for me, when I used to do that, I used to have to practice it painstakingly slow. Now I can get through it much faster because it's something that I've gotten much better at. However, there are still always things that I have to practice really slow. And eventually it just becomes really fun to have to start with something, just taking it super slow and just inching along. And then all of a sudden you start to build up speed and it becomes a really exciting process that you start to have a lot of fun with. And at the end of the day, you got to make sure that you're practicing in a way that it's fun. So with that in mind, I hope you guys got something out of this video. I hope you enjoyed it. It's rare that I do a video that's just all about something more conceptual, but I know that's something that a lot of you wonder about. So I hope you're able to get something out of this, and make sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.